Hi, everyone. Our video chat from earlier didn't record as we thought. We recorded it into a Google Meet, but unfortunately, I needed to add apps onto my Chromebook to get it to work. And I don't know if each of you would know exactly how to do that, or if all of that, the idea of that would confuse you. So I'm going to make a really short video here, just kind of summarizing what we went through today in our meeting. First off, I want to say everyone needs to be reading the directions for the items that we're doing. It's become a little apparent that some of you are just trying to guess and get through the lesson instead of actually reading the directions to go along with it. So we're not in class with you, and many times we'll stop people and say things like, "Hey, did you read the directions? That doesn't look quite right." And or we'll say, "Wait a second, you didn't read the directions. I can tell because, this answer is wrong." But if we're not in class, then I can't tell you to do that. So please make sure that you're following the directions. And this is not only happening in social studies, it's happening in several classes. So, if you're kind of staring at the map, you'll notice that today we're going to introduce South Asia. South Asia are the countries that you see on the map. So, if we get my handy dandy pen right here, you can see that the big country here is India. It's on the Indian subcontinent, okay? And there are several countries here. So, we have Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, okay? And then we have Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. These are the countries in South Asia. So, to tell you a little bit about these countries, India, you already know a little bit about. We have discussed India because it is part of the Indus River Valley. And the Indus River Valley actually kind of falls right almost along this borderline of Pakistan and India. Okay, almost there. It's not perfect, but kind of in that general region. And that's where we've studied the Indus River Valley. We've mentioned India before because when we were talking about our gross domestic products and our standards of living, we mentioned India when we showed you the housing options in India and how some people there, because they have such a large population, have to live in less than, modern housing, or even in something more equivalent to an American ghetto. So they have slums in India. That's what they call them, where millions of people live. So we kind of talked about that. And we talked about India's GDP. If you open your book to let me get there in my book, to page 349, you'll be able to look and see kind of India's GDP. It's in the chart marked South and Central Asia GDP. You'll notice that India's GDP is $2,900. That's $2,900. And you'll notice that the United States is 48,000. And do remember, GDP, we talked about this earlier this year in our economics lesson. GDP stands for gross domestic product. So, with that, when we're looking at gross domestic product per person, it's per person in a household what they're bringing in. The average person in the United States brings in about $48,000. The average person in India only brings in $2,900. If we look at some of these other countries on page 349, you're going to see that there is Pakistan. Pakistan, again, is this yellow country here. Pakistan is only at $2,600. That's $300 less than the average in India. So even less. And then if we look at Afghanistan up here, $800. That's how much $800 an adult would bring into the household for a year. Guys, think about what costs $800 in your life. Think about how much, or maybe even ask your parents how much the rent alone costs or the mortgage for your house costs. My guess is it's probably around that mark for a month. And in Afghanistan, this is what they bring home all year. Again, you can look at page 349. That's where I'm getting this information from in your blue textbook that you took home with you. South and Central Asia are two of the poorest regions in the world. The Central Asian nations that were once part of the communist economic system of the Soviet Union suffer from shaky economies. In South Asia, where we're talking about, economies are so weak that millions of people live in poverty and don't have enough food to eat. Despite this, in India, a small minority does enjoy great wealth. Now, do you remember I talked about how bad things were in India? For instance, we showed you a picture of the trains in India, some of the slums in India, that I mentioned. With with if we look up um, Indian slum image, it will bring up some of the pictures that I've shared with you before, where these people live, what it looks like. When we look at these are heartbreaking images of, individuals and where they live and in what poverty they live in. So, you can kind of see that what their houses are made out of and different things. And um, you can see. And I have to feel for these people in this crisis that we are going through today, because I have a feeling that some of the people who are, maybe the poorest people in the world may suffer significantly from the COVID-19 virus. Anyways, moving on. If we go back here, we talked about India as far as their religion as well. We mentioned that a lot of people in India are Hindus. And then we talked a little bit about Nepal as well. Nepal is up here, this kind of lime green color. Nepal is where the Himalayas are at, the Himalayan mountains are at. Along with Mount Everest, which is the tallest mountain in the world, standing at 29,035 feet. Um, so it's pretty significant, but we'll get more into geography in just a little bit. And then, of course, we have Bangladesh, Bhutan, and then down here, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is really kind of a vacation spot for many. So if we look at a picture of Sri Lanka, we will see it is tropical and really, really pretty. If we bring this up, just to give you some ideas, you can probably see my screen here, but this would be an image of Sri Lanka. So you can see how pretty and tropical it is. There's lots of different beaches. There's, it's definitely a vacation spot for many. They have nice resorts and different things along those lines. So it gives you a little bit of a side interest in maybe visiting somewhere else in the world, Sri Lanka. So that's part of our maps. Now, you'll need to know this map for your second day activity, meaning Wednesday's activity in your directions. Wednesday's activity actually wants you to know these countries, and you have to be able to complete the countries in less than a minute. And get 100% on them, which you can do as many times as you want, and then take a screenshot. Just as a reminder, even though I went through every 7th grade class the Friday we left school and said, everybody knows how to do a screenshot, I'm just going to review one more time with you. To take a screenshot on your Chromebook, I want you to look down at your keypad. In the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see a button. It says CTRL. That's control. You're going to hit that button at the exact same time as you hit a button in the very top row. It's in the middle. It is a rectangle with 2 lines to the right of it, underneath where like the HP little circle is on your screen. Hit those at the same time, and voila, a screenshot, as you can see, has been taken, and it will copy to your clipboard, and you can just Control V to paste. So to make this screenshot, you just hit Control and the square with the 2 little lines, bam. Then you put it into the document and hit, or open up the document and hit Control V, V for Victor, and it should paste it right in. All right. If you have any questions, you can definitely contact Mrs. Williams or myself, or, whomever. So that's your second day. That's why I was reviewing these countries here, okay, to give you an idea of where we're at in the world, okay? If you remember, just right over here, this is China. So this was one of our ancient civilizations. We had the Indus Valley, which is right here. Then we have Mesopotamia right over here. Okay. And then this actually is Egypt. So those were our ancient civilizations we've been studying in this part of the world. All right. Moving on. I wanted to show you, please be not, no, I needed this map. All right, so here is our map of the geography of India. You're going to see that up here at the top, we have the Himalayas, okay? And then we have right here Mount Everest at 29,035 feet. Along with that, you can see right here, this is the Indus River right along this line. And you see how close that is to where Pakistan kind of sits, right? All right. And then Afghanistan is up here, and then you have India. Now, Afghanistan and Pakistan are really, really dry countries. They definitely are lacking when it comes to water. So we call those a semi-arid. So let's look up a picture of Afghanistan. When we pull this up, you're going to see pretty dry areas, okay? And it looks pretty deserty, all right? There's lots of pictures out there. So, of course, these are all war pictures. That's not what I really want to see. Afghanistan, let's try land image. This is better. All right. So there is a river and whatnot, but you're going to notice as I kind of scroll through these pictures that honestly, there's a lot of dry land in Afghanistan. It is a lot of dry kind of land. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have, you know, the ability to irrigate or, you know, things like that. But one of the reasons why Afghanistan's GDP is $800 is because they're not necessarily making money off of the, you know, food industry and different things like that. So, how does Afghanistan get water? Because you see it in some places. So, how does it get water? So, here it shows that some of these areas are underwater, and you might wonder why. Well, there's a reason for that. Sorry, wrong picture. Let's pull up the bigger one. Just to give you some idea, when we look here, there are monsoons that actually come out of the Arabian Sea, and they kind of come this way. The monsoons do, okay? And they kind of travel northeast, okay? And they kind of go up towards the mountain range up here of the Himalayas. And the mountains kind of block it. So the pattern of the monsoons comes right up this way. But the monsoons are these huge, big pulling winds. Okay, to give you an idea of what that looks like, let's look up monsoons in India. And you can see that when the monsoons happen in India, and we can choose any of these, you're going to see a lot of pictures, okay, that show what it's like for these individuals when the monsoons go through. You're talking about walking in waist deep water. All of a sudden, this rain comes out of nowhere, bam, and then it's gone. Well, it's not fully gone, but it stays around. It fills up the rivers and that kind of thing. So if we scroll up to the top, I bet you we can find a map of the monsoons to help us explain this. And this is kind of what we do when we research. Okay, so here's the monsoon onset map. You can see that it's coming out of the Arabian Sea and going across the Deccan Plateau that is in India down here. And then at that point in time, you can see that the mountains here are actually, there's wind coming out of the mountains that actually stop the monsoons from blowing so far in. And then it kind of turns this wind and blows it up towards this way, so that even like Pakistan and Afghanistan have a little bit of the weather. So that kind of lays out the monsoons, but they are massive for sure. Okay. So we go back to here. We have these monsoons, okay, that come across and make it quite wet for some of the people in South Asia. Now, if you look at page 384 to 391, that's what you'll be reading for your assignment. Do remember there are two, maybe three questions at the end of your Google form that you need to correct. It's automatically going to mark them wrong no matter what your answer is because it's a short answer. And when we have to put in our answer key, we have to give it like very specific things. But no worries, Miss Williams is going to go in and look at every person's answer. So don't freak out, okay? It might not be as bad as you think it is, okay? So again, you're going to read those pages. It's 384 to 391. And you are going to then go ahead and take your Google form. Now remember, you don't have to put your book away to do that Google form. It's not a test, it's just more of a worksheet, question and answer for you to use your book with. Okay. So there's that. Then I already talked to you about what your second day activity was going to be. And then your third day activity is watching a video and answering some questions about Pakistan. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of, kind of a touch base, what people, lifestyles are alike a little bit and kind of opening your world to these countries in South Asia. All right. Have a great evening. And if you have any questions, please contact us.